Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you again to the New Media Art and Archive workshop, the third and last of sessions focused on new media art and its preservation, organized by the Central European Art Database and the Theory of Interactive Media Department at Masaryk University in Brno, Czech Republic. And at the very beginning, I would like to thank my co-workers Dusan Barok and Jakub Frank from the CEAD and the team led by Jana Horáková, especially to Svatava Doubková and Michal Franěk. It is an immense pleasure for us all to be able to meet despite current, once again, not very pleasant global situation. My name is Barbora Kundračíková. I am the Chief Curator in the Olomouc Museum of Art, Central European Forum, and I will moderate today's program. As you all know already, the series as such deals with complex issue of preserving new media works of art in public institutions. It focuses on a full range of activities essential for the technical protection of the artwork, its correct interpretation and presentation. The seminar is based on the CEAD project, New Media Museum, which is organized in cooperation with the Slovak National Gallery, WRO Art Center, C3, Center for Culture and Communication Foundation, and PAF, Film, Animation and Contemporary Art Festival. It is, of course, one of many. Nevertheless, there are two moments I find exceptional. It deliberately connects professionals with students, academics, and theoreticians with practicing archivists, curators, and artists, and also gives an opportunity to discuss one problem for all three, so similar as well as dissimilar perspectives. Those of the artist, curator, and institution. Let's enjoy ourselves, but also the time we have been given the opportunity to share. Today's session focuses on the domain of collection. We have invited three experts from three different institutions, which again go across the field, from museum to archive, from archive to university. Those are the Slovak National Gallery, represented by Lucia Gregorová-Stach, the Valley Export Center, represented by Sabine Foley, and finally the HGH, University of Science and Technology, represented by Anna Olszewska. The fourth speaker is Tiziana Caianiello, for a long time associated with the Zero Foundation. As always, there is going to be a discussion focused one after every presentation and a global one at the end of the session. It should be moderated by Dusan Barok, but we'll see how the situation develops. Good afternoon to you all, and many thanks for sharing your experience with us. As the first speaker, I would like to introduce Lucia Gregorová-Stach, who is going to reflect the situation in one of the Central European traditional collecting institutions, the Slovak National Gallery, which was established in 1948. It is in its foundation deed. It is defined as the supreme and central gallery institution of Slovakia. Its collection includes now around 70,000 items, many of which are part of the national cultural heritage. And the gallery fulfills a role in the area of protection and care for these monuments of historical as well as modern and contemporary art culture. Chief Curator of the Modern and Contemporary Art Collections at the Slovak National Gallery, Lucia Gregorová-Stach, works mostly with Central and Eastern European art of the second half of the 20th century. She curated many monographic and thematic exhibition and publication projects. In 2017, she curated the exhibition of Jana Želibská, Czech and Slovak Pavilion at the Venice Biennial. Since 2019, she has co-curated the Intermedia Festival Jama in Banská Štiavnica. Lucia, welcome here. The floor is yours now. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you see my screen now? I again cannot hear you now.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay then. Great. So I have chosen two artists and four examples of reconstructed works from the 1960s that have been part of exhibitions that I have curated. And as we all know, it's more than to put an exhibition together. It goes always together with searching archives and finding some ways how to represent works that have changed so many times during their life. So first artist that I would like to present here, Oh, I would like to comment to the picture. This is not a reality yet, but this is how our museum building should look like once it's reconstructed itself. So first artist that I would like to present, and the works that were subject to reconstructions is Jana Želibská, and I have chosen two environments, possibility of discovery. That was Želibská's first solo exhibition, and it was an environment meant to attack all senses of the visitor, and so that she not only used her objects and works, but she also have used curtains, lights, and she invited visitors to move them, to manipulate them, to interact. These are a few historical photographs from the environment and from also from the opening. We can see Stanofilko on one of the photographs. But as you can see, this is an environment that consisted out of 16 art works that are now in various collections. So when me and my colleague Vladimira Bingerova started to work on the retrospective exhibition, we had to think about a way how will we represent this work, and we have chosen the way of representing it as close to what it once was as possible. It was also very good that the artist could supervise, and as you know, it's never the same thing. So this is what we got at the end. It's not 14 parts, but only it's not 16 parts, but only 14, because 2 of them were lost. But we were able to gather the pieces from different collections, public or private. One a large object and painting is also represented in Olomouc, which was part of this exhibition. And they normally can be, according to the artist, exhibited separately from the whole, but we really wanted for the retrospective to have a certain sense of how it was. The spaces were not ideal for this kind of thing, so I do hope that we can do it once again. It was a special time when many big institutions were preparing shows on pop art in 2015. So we luckily met their interest with our exhibition, and so Jana's works were represented within 2 large shows: The World Goes Pop in the Tate Modern in London, and the International Pop exhibition that also was accompanied by quite a big book, and it was traveling also to Philadelphia and Dallas Museum of Art. So here you can see examples of having kind of only a few objects gathered to represent the artist as as separate artworks. Quite another situation is with Jana's second environment, Kandarya Mahadeva, that also before her retrospective show in 2012 in the SNG has never been seen again. So it has been installed in 1969 in Spala Gallery in Prague. And she was invited by Jindřich Chalupecký. As we all know, it was after 1968 and after the occupation. So the limits were quite limits were not yet set, because it took some time until the normalization and officialities altered all the key persons in the cultural and social life. So it was still possible for Chalupecký to invite artists that very soon became the unofficial underground artists after some political acts by Communist Party. And one such detail occurred that Jana meant to paint these female bodies, the silhouettes of female bodies, outside the gallery in the street, but that Jindřich Chalupecký didn't really want. He said that it's provocative enough and that they would risk too much. But this environment is a complex work that is composed out of solid concept of elements. One of them is so-called Shiva's column, because she was inspired by the Kandarya Mahadeva's temple in Khajuraho in India. And also, of course, she implemented the hippie female pop provocative aesthetics with the mirrors in where the vaginas would be in the female figures, and a lot of flowers. And so this environment was only installed once in 1969 in Prague, and it consisted out of this column that was lightened from the inside by neons, and the material is the plastic, the same kind of plastic that is used for 3D maps, or was so-called Fatrocad. So she had it made for this exhibition. And here, let's go back to how she installed it, and so that you can see. So we had a desire to bring people this work, to bring it from its black and white representation in the art history from the photographs, and to really offer the experience to our public. So we were really struggling to find a lady who could make like 800 paper flowers in a quality that the artist would approve. It was not easy. We discussed with quite few ladies, and their flowers were rejected. But what we have to say is that Linear Collection, a private collection in Bratislava, has bought the concept, or the work from the artist as a concept, and they had the column produced again supervised by the artists. So this was existed. Everything else we have been producing on site, and the artist was there. So we were projecting the figures because they have to fit in space. So you can't really have it the same all the time. And as in the original artwork, we installed this environment in two separate rooms. But when Jana was chosen as one of the artists in The World Goes Pop, and one of the 4 artists that were given their own room for an installation, she adopted the concept for one room. So this is how it looked in Tate. It was you can see that we had to we had to follow some security rules, so that people do not go too close to the work. But it's quite had a good response, and I think also it was a discovery for the London scene. So I really wish that we will represent at least Kandarya Mahadeva within the collections, permanent collections that will be part of the new opened, reconstructed SNG. Second artist that I would like to present by his 2 works that I've been curating within the exhibitions and reconstructing is Stano Filko. And he, on the contrary to Jana Želipská, also wrote a lot about his approach to environments and to the visitor. And it's always a man that he's addressing. It's not surprising in his work and in the 60s. But so what I would like to, so I picked up several like his intentions with the environment. Like, for example, it's quite interesting, the co-authorship with the visitors. So he really believed that people that enter the environment become part of it, and like a lot of photographs include people, mostly women, inside as part of the whole thing. But what I would like to point out is that this is how the work was acquired in the 90s to the SNG, while the artist was still alive and in a good condition. And you can see that it is quite a plain construction that has not many in common with the one that Filko is describing in his text. So what I did is I was looking for all kinds of material that can bring us more that can bring us closer to what his intention was. What I found out is that the work has been exhibited many times in, or not many times, but few times, with iterations that were not the same all the time. There were some elements, part of it from which only the chess table has been acquired with the work and the mirror floor. I was especially happy to have discovered these two photographs from Grenoble, from the famous exhibition Cinétisme, Spectacle and Environnement. And we can see also the parts of the environment that, like, for example, the globes or the light. And we can see also some people interact in, and it is very rare color slide, both of them. I would like to point out to the fact that sometimes we have the source very close, and we don't work with it because the work has been acquired in the 90s, as I said, and not until 2016 was the work presented in the right way, in my opinion. And if we only read, or if the curators only read the Filco's own descriptions, they would have had a perfect manual. Like, for example, this text reads in English, in Filco's English: an invitation to a visitor camera to experience for a short while a constructive reality. At the entrance into the environment, a visitor camera may wait and measure his own body and thus get some knowledge about himself, at least from the physical point of view. Second, visitor wishing to get into the center of these three settings has to penetrate through the three nylon string net screens. There are symbols of humanity and technology painted anti-manually by electric brush. There he finds himself on a mirror floor where everything is multiplied and where he finds himself in company with his own reflected image. He himself can choose whether to enter, and so on and so on. And what we also read here is the components. On the real wall of the settings, there is a non-stop changing projection of the symbols and desires of mankind, the universe, people, cars, technology, etc., with the globes of the universe and the earth. So we started to look at all kinds of documentation that was available. And as you can see, it's sometimes there are mirrors also put vertically, sometimes not. But what was especially great is that we discovered in Filco's archive the original slides from the environment. So we have been able to project them. They consist out of pin-up girls and American cars, and so this is how the work was presented within the solo show of early works by Stano Filco in the SNG in 2016, and I would like to also point to the fact that a radio from the same year is included, that has played because it was part of, and also the way the measure, we have found also these measuring objects that a collector didn't really know what they are part of. So I hope that it was closer to what it once was, and so that the work can now be representing can now represent the artist in a much more proper way. So this is I made a comparison in like what the work is like. What kind of impression does the work leave? For example, in the journalist take from the previous version, that was really just I would say a dead body of the original artwork. I won't be too long. I think I have to hurry up, but this is the last work that I would like to present is the environment Cosmos, and also it has not been installed since the 1960s, and the work was lost while preparing the exhibition and working with the archive and with helping with the heritage, or it wasn't heritage from the beginning, but Stanofilko has died in the middle of our work, so it has become a heritage, and so this lost work appeared in several places, in several collections, and also in his house in Velká Hradna, there was part of it. The original tent was found as really by intention of the collector in the Linnea collection, but they weren't able really to put it together. But then we started to work and we started to find all other things, and we were then able to reconstruct the environment, which is inside also covered with mirrors on the floor. The rocket object is in the middle, and on its shelves you could found slide projection of the images that also have been found within the archive, luckily, because otherwise it wouldn't have made much sense. So they were projected on the walls within the Caruso slide projection, and also there was a radio that was broadcasting the like the successes of the space conquest. And what I find especially great is that this work was then acquired to Tate Modern last year, and we were as SNG were crucially helping with the acquisition, and so that not all of the works that we are caring for and reconstructing have to be part of our own collection, but I find this also a part of our mission to care for the artist in his international reception, because otherwise the private galleries wouldn't have been able to do this. So this is how it looked in the gallery. It's green, which was also surprising, because we have only known it from black and white photographs before. And on the right, you can see two examples of the slides that were projected inside the Cosmos. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you, Lucia. I think it's absolutely lovely, actually. Slovakia in 60s was extremely interesting, I guess, and hopefully also for our public and guests, because it's extremely nice. Želipska, Filko, and others, incredible, I guess. So thank you very much. There's a list of questions from Dusan, but I would like to start, if I may. I'm always interested in traditional institutions like Slovak National Gallery, Olomouc Museum of Art. We are so traditional, right? And in this complex institutions which take care about huge collections of paintings, sculptures, and so on, new media or this kind of installation is always something very problematic. So the first question would be how the Slovak National Gallery copes with this kind of installations. You've tried to describe it, but how does your team work actually? How many people from, I don't know, restorations department, for example, you have, or how do you cooperate inside the institution? And would be the second question for me. You have the experience from the TATE, of course. We have a guest from TATE in the first session we've organized, Patricia Falco. So we have kind of idea how the TATE works itself, but how was your cooperation with them? What have you learned from them, for example? What were they, I don't know, also problems on their side, I guess, because there is a difference in communication, of course. So if you can react to that, and then I would give a space to our guests also to ask, at least briefly, and then we follow with another paper. So thank you very much again.
Thank you. I would point to the fact that we really need some more coordinated procedures. And that's why it's also very good from my point of view to be part of this program, and that to also to have been able also to discuss these kind of things with Dusan the other day and the other colleagues from WRO, and because yes, we are working from one thing to another. And of course, people are great, our restoration conservators. Some of them are really passionate for these new kinds of conservatory. But also from my experience, it has been really very hard to work without certain procedures, and having not been able to record things as they should, because I think that institutions are running after the artworks. It's always like that, but in this kind of thing, I think I expressed my curiosity. How was it even possible when the curators acquired the work in the 1990s and exhibited it within the 60s, huge exhibition, and they didn't look at the documentation, they didn't think about it, there are no records, and the artist was still alive in a good condition. That was such a opportunity to get all the information that we now don't have, because I have been visiting Filko, but he was very old already, and so I'm happy that he told me some things, but it could have been a completely other moment. So I think the museums, some other museums may be in a better condition for this, but we have to really rework our procedures in the new media artworks, because some of them are in the sculpture collections, some of them are other media collections, and it's a mess. And when I started my presentation with the picture of our dream palace of the new reconstructed museum, I really wish that we do not take all these problems with us without having certain paths that we want to follow, and some good practice examples that we can adapt for. As it seems, we have some good practice examples ourselves, but we need to make it structure So, and with the Tate, this is inspirational because they have the procedures. Sometimes they are very limited by having the procedures because, for example, they have to follow really such safety rules that sometimes go against the works themselves. But I understand they have like millions of visitors a year, so they cannot be as adventurous as we sometimes are, that we allow people to step on the mirror floor, which in Tate would be totally impossible. So, but yes, I have learned a lot from them. But we are another kind of institution. We have to develop our own procedures, because also our artists have been working differently. Sometimes they were, when we were doing this exhibition of Jana Želibska, we found out that many of her works don't exist anymore, because she has been using the same components for a new work, for another. There was no art market, so she just did. There was a very different thinking about the art as such. So these are all topics that we have to also adapt to our procedures and our practice as curators of the collections. That we have to be aware that yes, the reconstructions, they must follow also these specific localities. So,
okay, thank you very much. Well, I've seen Tiziana and Sabine nodding, so I think, yeah, and Sabine is also asking for a space. The position of artists, I guess, in this whole environment is quite interesting. But I would give space to Sabine to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you, Sabine. We can hear you.
Your mic is off.
Okay, now it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tiziana, it's okay if I go first. So, Lucia, thank you so much for this very interesting lecture you gave. Yeah, it was interesting because I had a similar experience with Ree Morton, with my reconstructing Ree Morton's work in 2008. After the 80s, it was the first time that the work was touched at all. And then in 2015, again, first in the Generale Foundation in Vienna, and then in the Reina Sofia in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also this point that she used and reused material, and so some installations didn't exist anymore. But the good thing is that we had these notebooks, sketchbooks, a million of slides and drawings and so on. So I could do work of reconstruction. Somehow I could try to reconstruct things, go in the depots of the estate and check and everything. So it was a long work, and I could do this because the estate was open and had all this material. I acquired the work, and I wanted also to acquire the sketch and notebooks, but then MoMA went in and they bought it, and now, of course, unfortunately, it's closed, so to speak. It's difficult to get hold of this material again, yes, which was mandatory to do really the ground research work on Ree Morton. So my question was, if you acquire a work of these interesting artists of the 60s, 70s, whatever, do you acquire also this documentation material, diagrams, sketches, photographs, all kinds of material, or do they stay with the estate? Because this is also a question, of course, in my little paper that I gave, that we are an archive of a conceptual artist, and sometimes you don't know if it's an artwork or if it's if it has the state of an artwork or if it's a sketch or a note or something, because as you know, of course, the idea and the instruction is part of the artwork, or maybe is already the artwork as such, because then the final execution, performance, whatever, is something that could be done by somebody else also in the conceptual times. So yeah, that was my question. If you, how you deal with this material around the installations?
Yeah, also from one to another, but yes, the archive was of such a help for me, because I could find things in it. But yeah, there are two very special archives that we have in the gallery, and one of them is Julius Koller's archive, which you can really consider an artwork. And another archive is this archive by Stanofilko that unfortunately is only a fragment of, now it's about, I think it's about 38 files, but it's only a fragment of what it was, because Filko started to rework his over after 2000, also, or all the time since he came from immigration in the 1990, but from the USA. But he really produced an artwork. It's even more an artwork, this archive, than the Julius Koller's. It's full of drawings, full of sketches, full of like, for example, empty sheets that represent the fifth dimension and the immaterial leap into the material world, and all things like that you can see that, and the files are organized by the artists according to certain topics, and it's a huge I call it a whale. It's a whale, like this Moby Dick metaphor, that it would take me a whole life to really go through this archive. But it's also surprising that the generations of curators before didn't really gather this kind of materials. So a lot of things are lost, or we are looking for them, or which is also quite surprising. We have an archive of like documentations and things in the gallery. That's a separate department, and you can go there and study. But it has no. It also had no real rules. What kind of material do we need from the artists? It's just what we have been able, or what the institutions have been able to gather. There are very interesting things, but also what I must say is that it's very important to really keep the archives, because they are even more important than the artworks themselves, from my point of view. Even when we are talking about reconstructions, yes, without the archives, we are lost. We can't really work with it, because we don't have the record of the thinking of the artist, and we cannot really lean on his authority. And that's probably what happened previously with some of the works that I have shown. But it's now quite complicated to get them. And also, what is interesting with the Filko's archive is that the part that was lost because a big collector who really saved a lot of his artworks, but with his best intention, he took the sheets out of so many folders, and he thought that he would reorganize them and so this is lost, you know, because archive is also the relations between the separate items, the individual items. So yes, it's absolutely crucial to also to build a strategy of the acquisition procedure from the beginning as one that consists out of documentation too, if it's possible. So of course that would, but yes, for us it's a new practice in a way.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think to keep archive is vital, and it's quite interesting. The artwork actually lives in archive somehow, or exists in archive, I guess. I would close the discussion for now and would give the floor to Tiziana, if I may. I'll introduce you at first, so just very quickly and briefly. Tiziana Caianiello studied humanities at the University of Naples in Italy and specialized in theoretical issues in the conservation of contemporary art. She earned her PhD in art history from the University of Cologne with a dissertation on the light kinetic installation Lichtraum, homage to A Fontaine, by Hans Mack, Otto Peene and Ginter Wicker from 1964, and the artist Disco Kremches. From 2007 to 2009, she led the research project materializing the ephemeral media art installations, preservation and presentation at the Intermedia Art Institute in Düsseldorf. The results of the project were published in 2013 in a book. From 2009 to 2020, she worked as a researcher associated at the Zero Foundation in Düsseldorf, a non-profit institution with a collection and archive specialized on the art movement Zero, where she was particularly responsible for the archives. Currently, she collaborates with the Cologne Institute of Conservation Sciences on the initiation of a new research project in the field of the conservation of contemporary art. She is contract lecturer at different universities, such as Università Vita Salute San Raffaele and the Università Cattolica in Milan. Tiziana, welcome. Your space is here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for your introduction. And thank you to Lucia for this wonderful presentation that is perfectly connected with the subject of my presentation. And I'm going to share the PowerPoint with you. Just one moment. It doesn't seem to work.
Hopefully it will. Yeah, it's working now. It's not.
Okay, no, I hope so. So in my talk, I would like to present the multimedia installation Light Ballet Homage to New York by Otto Peene as a case study on the role of the archive for recalling and reconstructing forgotten artworks. Peene realized this installation for the exhibition Zero in Bonn in 1966. After the show, the artwork fell into oblivion. In 2013, art historian Tekla Zell, a former colleague of mine at the Zero Foundation, rediscovered Peene's installation through archival records, so that in 2016, nearly 50 years after its first and only presentation, the work could be staged again. This case study shows that archival records and material remains allow current and future generations to rediscover a work and consolidate its memory, even if it has been forgotten for a long time. On the other side, the case study also shows the challenges that the institutions have to face when they decide to reconstruct a multimedia installation, and how reconstructions also depend on interpretation. Now, I would like to show you the end of the story already. A short video with the reconstructed installation. This is the result of our work. I'll share the video already at the beginning of my presentation so that you get an impression of the installation. But when we started to work on this reconstruction, we didn't know how the presentation will be, how the installation will be at the end. So it is an installation with slides. You see the slides now, and the light reflection, light effects also here on the screens. So I think it is already enough. And what you didn't hear was the sound of the installation. Light Ballet, Homage to New York, is a programmed installation consisting of dancing light reflections, rhythmic slide projections, and sound. Light filaments and slides are projected onto 7 screens in the colors of the rainbow, as well as onto walls and ceiling. 2 carousel slide projectors show New York slides, while a 3rd projector throws organic forms onto a screen. This is the projector. Here is the projection of an organic form. These forms were hand-painted by the artist on glass slides. Motorized devices mounted in front of the projectors, this is one of them is here, refract the projections with prisms and mirrors into spectral colors and disperse them further into the room. The sound consists of noises recorded by Pine in the streets of New York. The images of New York and the sound make Pine's homage to the North American metropolis immediately perceptible. My colleague Tekla Zell rediscovered the installation during archival research about the exhibition Zero in Bonn, which was presented at the Städtische Kunstsammlungen Bonn in 1966. The Städtische Kunstsammlungen Bonn are called today Kunstmuseum Bonn, and my colleague worked at the archives of the Kunstmuseum Bonn, where she carried out research there, and she found a list, transport list for the loans of the exhibition Zero in Bonn, where this installation by Pine was mentioned, Lichtballett Hommage à New York, also Light Ballet Hommage to New York. The work had not been displayed since 1966 and was not mentioned in the literature. Therefore, Tekla Zell asked the artist if the work, or at least the parts of it, still existed. Pine found in his studio 5 of the 7 screens used for the installation and donated them to the Zero Foundation. You see here 2 of the 7 screens. After the artist's death in 2014, Tekla Zell could identify color photographs of the work in Pine's records. They provided new information on the installation so that Pine's chief assistant, Günther Thorn, could find numerous components of the work and Pine's original sketches in the artist's studio. This is just, there are just 2 pages of 32 pages of sketches. I would like to stress that these items probably would not have been discovered in the huge quantity of material that Pine kept in his studio. if the archival records did not awake the interest of my colleague in this installation. So Pine kept practically everything, and so there is a lot of material, and this material belongs to the Zero Foundation now. So the whole archive of Otto Pine is at the Zero Foundation. In view of the material that had been found, the Zero Foundation decided to reconstruct the installation for the exhibition Zero is gut für dich, Zero is good for you, Mag Pine Uka in Bonn, at the LVR Landesmuseum Bonn in 2016. My colleague Tekla Zell and I, we curated the exhibition. Günther Thorn, the former assistant of Pine, supported the Zero Foundation in this complex process. You see him here on the right mounting the installation. Pine developed the work typology of the light ballet from 1959 until to his death. So, like Lucia told us regarding the installations by Jana Zelipska, also here we have the same problem that Pine used the same machines for different presentations of the light ballet. He used various light machines and various kind of projections that he made dance in the room. And Günther Thorn had assisted Otto Pine for years in installing different light ballets. However, in 1966, when the homage to New York was presented for the first time, Thorn wasn't Pine's assistant yet. He was too young at that time. Since nobody had experience with the presentation of this particular work, basic information about the installation could only be documented after the Zero Foundation had staged the work in 2016. So it was really learning by doing for us. Although many components and much documentation of the installation had been found, some parts missed, and there was great leeway in decision-making on different points. The kinetic light machines that Pine had used for the installation were not available. The programmed switch sequence of the devices needed to be reconstructed. We didn't know exactly which slides Pine had used for the installation and what was their sequence in the magazines. And we also had some uncertainties about the sound. A relevant question for the reconstruction was which role the different light machines and the single slides played in the overall effect of the installation. We interpreted the work as an immersive environment with simultaneous light and slide projections that didn't allow a linear reading of the projected images. Consequently, we did not consider the single slides and light machines to be as important as the overall effect of the installation. You can see here 3 of the light machines in the installation. And you can see here as an example one of the machines that were not available anymore. This machine belongs, it is a light disc that belongs to the National Gallery in Berlin, and is a part of a light room and light installation in Berlin. So it cannot be used for the other for this installation. And so it was quite the same for the other machines. So they were reconstructed by Günther Thorn. And also the motor-driven plates with prisms and mirrors that refracted and multiplied the slide projections needed to be reconstructed. But the prisms and the mirrors were still in the studio. Moreover, the switch sequence of the different devices, for example, light machines, spotlights, slide projectors, and so on, had to be reconstructed. Had a score from 1962 that Pine usually used to program the timer switch for his light ballets. And you see here, unfortunately, it is just a bad image, but you can maybe recognize the these seven lines that give the intervals, the time intervals in which the machines have to switch on and off. So, but we needed to attribute these intervals to the different machines, to the different devices of the installation. Günther Thorn was a long experience with the Pine's light ballets, programmed a new timer switch, and you see here the 7 jacks to start to switch on and off the devices. A point that left great leeway in decision making was the selection of the slides for the installation. Günther Thorn found 514 slides in black and white and nearly 1,000 hand-painted glass slides in Pine's studios after his death. We needed 160 slides with the images of New York for 2 of the projectors and 80 hand-painted slides for the third projector. However, the slides were in boxes that Pine had vaguely labeled to indicate the slide subjects. Pine had not noted down for which artworks he had used the slides. You see here, you know that in this box there are slides about New York, but you don't know for which work they were made for, also because Pine used the same material for different works. Newspaper articles from the 60s that describe Pine's installation always refer to color slides, so we first removed all the black and white images. The photographs of the installation from 1966 also provided some clues. For example, here we could recognize the Empire State Building on this photograph from 1966, and we found the corresponding slide in Pine's studio. So it was a souvenir slide of New York, and we used it for our reconstruction together with other slides of the same series. So it is just an example of how we dealt with this problem of the selection of slides. At the end, our selection of New York slides seemed to be inherently consistent with the homage to New York. However, it was impossible to reconstruct Pine's exact slide sequence from 1966. Choosing among Pine's hand-painted glass slides was more arbitrary. Pine's assistant had found nearly 1,000 painted slides in the art studio, and we didn't have any reference point to select the 80 slides that were necessary for the installation. Most of them were in a precarious state of conservation, with craquelure and loss of color. You see here the craquelure. At the end, we just selected 80 slides from the best conserved. As the curatorial aim in 2016 was to recall the exhibition Zero in Bonn from 1966, and the slide projections played a major role in the installation that Pine presented on that occasion, we decided to reconstruct the work using mostly analog devices from the 60s. So you see here a Kodak carousel projector, for example, from the 60s that we bought, so used. The output of the historical equipment gave us also an orientation from the general setup of the installation. The pace of slide rotation and the distance of the projectors from the screens, for example, were dictated by the capacity of the slide projectors and their supplies. While we made analog copies of the slides, we didn't make an analog copy of the original tape with the sound used for the installation. We just used a digital copy for the exhibition. Also, we didn't have any reference about the volume in the first presentation of the work. According to Günther Thorn, sound always played only a supporting role in Pine's installations and should be too loud. Therefore, the volume was quite contained in the 2016 exhibition. This case study shows that the way we interpret and present a multimedia installation depends to some degree on our current state of knowledge about the artwork and its history. However, a certain range for decision-making cannot be avoided even in the case of reconstructions based on the most comprehensive documentation. Therefore, every reconstruction implies an interpretation. In turn, our interpretation of the work influences the form in which it will be staged in the future. For example, the way the Zero Foundation staged the Light Ballet Homage to New York in 2016 will be an important reference for future presentations, since the 2016 staging is better documented than the first presentation and will probably play a pivotal role in the consolidation of the collective memory of the work. So it is also a big responsibility, because we made this reconstruction without the artists, but our documentation will influence later presentations. In conclusion, archives can be considered as collective memory buffers. They make the collected items accessible to the consolidation process of collective memory. Thanks to the archive, the items connected with Light Ballet Homage to New York could attract the attention of a scholar, my colleague, and the installation got the chance of becoming part of a discourse that may consolidate its memory. The reconstruction of and new staging of historical installations and performances, such as the presentation of Light Ballet Homage to New York in 2016, provide the chance of tagging forgotten works for attention and ensure the conservation of original components. The archival materials, correspondences, notes, lists of works, photographs, together with the sketches and original components of Light Ballet Homage to New York, found in the studio of the artists, afforded the possibility to reconstruct and stage the installation. Albeit they also presented gaps that had to be filled in with conjectures. Even if very challenging, the reconstruction of this installation was an occasion to carry out in-depth research on this pivotal work by Pine and to present it to the public. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Tiziana. What I think about all the time is how dangerous sometimes it is to make a reconstruction, because it really is about interpretation, as you said at the end, and it might be quite leading. The choices you've made in 2016 are really quite leading for the interpretation of the work itself in next decades, I guess. So this was very interesting for me. As we are in the middle of today's session and we are slightly delayed, I would give you space to ask just one question, somebody from the public or our speakers, if you'd like. Okay, Sabine.
Yeah, Tiziana, thank you for this interesting case study. I was wondering, because if you think of the work of Anna Oppermann, for example, there is this way also to open up the installation to the intervention, or let's say to the assembling or new assembling of the curators to come. And there is not this fixed order, prefixed order, let's say, of these millions of little things to be arranged. In this case, I saw that the slides were also numbered. So I was wondering what the point was. If he exactly wanted to have this, like this order of colors or shapes or whatever, that is mandatory also for other curators and so on. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes. So I have to explain that the numbers were put by me. So I numbered the slides to create an inventory of them. And to document also which slides we used for the presentation 2016 and which order we used for our magazines. It was just on purpose of documentation. They were not numbered by Pine, and I also documented from which box they came from, because as Lucia said, it is very problematic. It is a problem if you start to put things in other orders and you don't document how the artist left things. So I must say, it is a difficult question. It is right to the point. Is it important that the order was important or not? Pine always installed his works himself. So he was always was on the spot for the installation with his assistant Günther Thorn, and he also changed the position of slides shortly for the presentation, and sometimes I know that he put the painted slides in the order of the colors of the rainbow. But in our case, we really didn't have a reference regarding the order of the slides. So we just decided, so that's why I highlighted that it was our interpretation to say we try to get the overall effect of the installation as an immersive installation, and we put the order in the background, and so I don't know if it is correct. I cannot actually answer the question, because we don't know if this order, so if Pine had a particular order in his mind. This is really the point.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think Anna also wanted to ask. Anna, I give you space if you'd like.
Okay, thank you very much. And have you considered the original spaces? I mean, the very room where the original installation, where the installation has been put originally in display. And have you thought about how to find the right surrounding also in terms of architecture?
We had the plan of the original space, so we knew the measures, the dimensions of the original space, but we could not recreate it in the museum where we were presenting the exhibition. So, and we also had the problem that the space where we presented the installation had a pillar in the middle of it, and so it was quite different. It was quite problematic. We, on the one hand, we used the old photographs to organize the pieces in the space, to arrange the pieces, the different screens, for example, in the space. On the other hand, we tried together with Pine's assistant to find a solution that also suited the new space. Pine always changed the installation of the machines according to the space that he had on disposal. So we tried also to include the pillar in the installation through the projections. So there were projections on the pillar to immerse it in the installation.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think I would now turn to Sabine, if I may, and we'll keep more questions in chat, I guess, and for the final discussion, if that's fine with you. Okay, so it was as early as the 1960s that the pioneer of media and performance art, Valley Export, started to build a substantial archive. We are following the same topic, I guess, which in 2015 was acquired as a premature legacy by her native city of Linz and incorporated into the collection of the Landeskunstmuseum. Since November 2017, the Valley Export Center Linz has provided access to the collection that comprises over 100,000 archival materials, such as notes, sketches, concepts, correspondences, drafts, screenplays, preparatory studies, or moodles. Valley Export's personal library of several thousand books and magazines containing pivotal works in the fields of media theory, film studies, and fine arts, feminism, philosophy, and literature is also available for research. The Valley Export Center Linz is international in its orientation. It strives to promote the artistic and scientific exploration of, in particular, the subject areas of media and performance art, and establishes a link to contemporary artistic practices also. Sabine Folli is an art historian, author, and curator. She is appointed as director of the art collection of the Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna, per 1st January 2022. Currently, she is the director of the Valley Export Center Linz, a research center for media and performance art, and professor for performance art and time-related media at the University of Art and Design Linz. She was guest professor of a theory at the MAF program Public Art and New Artistic Strategies at Bauhaus University, Weimar. She was the director of Generali Foundation Vienna from 2008 until March 2014 and chief curator at Kunsthalle Wien from 1998 until 2008. Since the 1990s, she has curated numerous exhibitions and edited many publications. Sabine, it's very nice to have you here. The floor is yours. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for this nice introduction, and you did already a very good introduction of the Valley Export Center, so I don't have to do that part. The point is now that, of course, I don't have such an interesting, lively and colorful case study as you have you both. It's more black and white, I would say, and it's more. It's more also a reflection on the artist as an archivist, so to speak. So it's more a little bit a theoretical essay. So I hope you get not too bored. And I try to share my screen still, if it's possible. Okay.
Yeah, it works perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. What is happening here?
I think it works. We can see the first slide.
The first slide, but not full screen.
No full screen, but it doesn't matter. It works.
Okay, good. So
Okay,
strange. I don't know, because it switches always. I don't see you anymore, but in any case. So I don't know why. This is very funny. Yeah, good. So this is a book now on the archive that is going to be published, released in soon. It will be here, I would say, like next week. And I don't know if you see me now, because I cannot see you or the screen or anything. You see this?
Yeah, we can see you. Yes.
Yeah. This is the book, unbound. So you have it really very fresh. And this is the book about a part of the archive, and about also the way how I try to think about how to display and how to exhibit an archive, which is, of course, something very different than to exhibit artworks as such. So now I start the archive. You see the empty archive of the Valley Export Center in Linz now here at the very beginning. And I'm showing you this slide because, I'm thinking about this archive as something against a dead chamber, so to speak. So at first glance, archives appear to be places of closed doors, endless corridors, repositories of storage, media, full of anonymous boxes of safeguarded knowledge, documents, autographs, studies, letters, reports, files. Completely hermetic and mercilessly transparent at the same time. Archives are uncanny because the hidden is documented here and at the same time revealed and unveiled. There is something intimidating and repellent about their density and confusion, the sheer abundance of material, which you don't see here, but in any case, organized by opaque nomenclatures and alien orders. And they testify to a leech probative force, grounded in the purely factual. The material culture gathered in them usually reflects a collective memory that transcends the individual, especially when it does not concern the lives of individuals, but other distant lives, times and spaces, unknown geographies or topologies. Michael Bachtin's concept of the chronotope could be applied not only to the novel, which forms the nucleus of his reflections, but also in a certain sense to the archive, if one were to interpret it as a novel of society, a place in which certain narratives of society and times are depicted. The chronotope defines a space-time in the novel, or in the archive if you wish, within which appropriation of historical space, historical time, and historical protagonists occurs in a discontinuous process. The term discontinuous indicates simultaneous non-simultaneities, because present recipients occupy a position in space and time from which they experience and explore the productions and settings of past and present event as simultaneous in the archive. So in the archive, selection takes place through choices made by the archons, the guardians of the archive in antiquity, the authors or inventory creators, the readers or researchers, insofar as they see, judge, select, understand from a contemporary institutional perspective, which is sometimes that of state policy. It is, however, precisely the interweaving of the past and the present that results in intermingling and allows perception of shifts in consciousness, forms of thought, formations, imprints, of transformations arising through social and technological change. The real and the fictitious, the present and the past overlap in various chronotopes. The anachronistic is short-circuited with the completely new elements emerge. Quote, time, as it were, thickens, takes on flesh, becomes artistically visible. Likewise, space becomes charged and responsive to the movements of time, plot, and history. Sorry, this was Bakhtin. An intertextual fabric comes into being, a memory structure about which Valley Export, whose archive I'm considering here, is abundantly clear when she states that it has a temporal flow. Her own view of it, however, obeys a different logic. For me, a memory structure is non-temporal. It has nothing to do with being linear or non-linear. It is variable and flexible. The past is present, but it is in the past. An archive is a process. The simultaneity and interconnectedness of past, present, and future are thus implied. Insofar as the archive is conceived as a process, it connects the past to the present, reanimates it with what is past, with ghostly presence. So Karen Barat, referring to Jacques Derrida, speaks of the potentiality of the ontological, the undoing that allows for intermediate indeterminacy in the nature of being and becoming. In other words, recognizing coexisting multiplicities of entangled relations of past, present, future, here, there, where the ghosts, quote, where the ghosts were encountered in the flesh as iterative materializations, contingent and specific agential reconfigurings of space-time matterings, as Barat calls it. Spectral reworkings without the presumption of erasure. So, in other words, Barat argues for the defixation, advocating not setting things right once and for all. So I would argue that this form of access to the archive would make sense to Valley Export, and I shall elaborate on that assumption. But why archive? The archive in the age of dematerialization of artistic practice, at least in terms of the materiality of non-materiality of what remains after performance, for example, or an action. It is obvious that particularly in conceptual, performative, and especially feminist practices, the archive plays a central role in the survival of artistic manifestations that disappear or run the risk of disappearing after each event due to their event-driven nature and temporal limitation. So I skip a little bit. The will to preserve in context of ephemeral art practice and its precarious testimonies alone would suffice to justify the will to archive. On the other hand, it is precisely in conceptual practices that the question comes into play, where does the archival end and where does the artwork begin? That's what we discussed before. So the beginnings, the archive constituting the subject. Where and why does collecting and documenting by artists begin, and in this primarily what we are concerned with here? Archives, especially the archives of artists, researchers, or writers, are sometimes gigantic boxes of notes with multiple cross-references. I give just a little example here, which is very interesting. It's Niklas Luhmann and his card indexes, and there is a fantastic online archive where you see that the cards are analog, so to speak, but the internet gives and the digital gives the possibility to show the interconnectedness of all of these thoughts that are related or noted on these different notes. And a similar example is this one. It says Walter Benjamin, das Passagenprojekt, which is very interesting. And it shows also that in a way that the book, das Passagenprojekt, the book was not really the, let's say, maybe the right medium for this project, because there is so much interconnectedness between the different notions throughout the book. And here the virtual space, so to speak, is the perfect way to show this rhizomatic back and forth, up and downs, and interconnectedness between all these kinds of notions that Walter Benjamin is speaking of. And I'm showing this because I think to a certain extent Valley Export's archive is analog, but at the same time is thought in a virtual and rhizomatic way. So now these boxes or these archives, they form the basis of scholarly work or artistic research and can be the motor that keeps a thinking machine going or constitute a measure of self-assurance, a drive for reflection. That's certainly something that is the case in Valley Export. She says, as far as I remember, I was already very fond of collecting as a child. It was an accumulation of things that on the one hand were my past and the present, but where I knew too that there was also something of the future about it. When you're a child, you never really know, and maybe you can't tell exactly why you're collecting. For example, I built altars from photos of my father, who was killed in the war, and whom I could no longer remember, and other photos. The photos of my father were his liveliness, but where it was perfectly normal for me at the time to be now. It wasn't now, of course, it was my imagination. It was a game about getting to know him better. An archive ultimately also works in this way, that you reach into the archive to pull something out. You want to become acquainted with something unknown, or find a connection, but then you pull out something else entirely. So in essence, researchers proceed according to the principle of artistic research, and artists also themselves, similar to that adopted by the artist serendipity. Findings fall into place, often through the search process per se, which brings together seemingly unconnected points and allows correspondences to emerge, which is what creates similarities in the first place. Serendipity, a principle of searching and finding in which chance comes to the rescue and something surprising emerges and suddenly new connections come into being because things created in different contexts and times are set side by side as if on a huge panel. These are, in a sense, Mnemosyne panels, like the ones of Warburg, with kinship connections, yet still differentiated, in which something is revealed. The eidetic system of references does not necessarily function according to common sense criteria, but rather teams with the unprincipled indifference of the child, as Walter Benjamin called it, according to analogies, sympathies, subjectively. However, this also entails suspending the ordering logic underlying commonplace classifications. So Walter Benjamin said, to someone looking through piles of old letters, a stamp that has long been out of circulation on a torn envelope often says more than a reading of dozens of pages. For Benjamin, this category of the outcast also includes the figure of the anti-bourgeois rag picker, who collects in a manner that contradicts the notion of the hegemony. Instead of works of art, the rag pickers collect, let's say we are rag pickers as researchers or archivists, or the artists, collects books, newspapers, articles, flyers, or archival materials such as correspondence notes on punch cards, paper napkins, or hotel stationery, scruffy sketches, loose excerpts, scribbled notes, devotional objects, texts written by hand, with typewriters, computers, detecting the change of writing utensils and technologies. All archival materials that, undernourished in a way also, feed, support, spur on the work. The resulting reference system of the collected and ordered is constantly expanding, evolving. The question, why do I make art and why it is a passion for me, that's a question that Vali Export posed herself, is at least one of the basic motivations for Vali Export to explore such reference systems in her work. The archive seems here to probe the roots of these questions as a useful ordering system. She says, all my documents were present in my structures of order, but they were also disordered. That is, they were largely ordered, unordered structures. Walter Benjamin, using the example of his library, determined the state of accumulation as the interplay of chance and the collector's fate. He says, thus, there is in the life of a collector a dialectical tension between the poles of disorder and order. End quote. This confusion would remain even if the order of its catalogue, as he says, were superimposed on it. It as the order of the archivist, so to speak, of the archontos. Even if the disorder may not always appear comprehensible, even seeming chaotic to those who are not the creators of the inventory, archives preserve the often anarchic character of these collections in order not to cover up traces that would disappear if this original disorder were overturned. That's what we spoke before. Of course, we keep this order, this original order. At the same time, when we digitize the material, we install our own order in order for researchers to find also what they are looking for. So material placed in the same vicinity may perhaps initially appear unconnected, suddenly making sense only after repeated sifting, thus bringing meaning to material deposited diachronically. Even disordered disorder, filed disorder, renders insights apparent concerning an individual work, read within the frame of a collective background. It does not follow any externally imposed law of the archive, which is subject to certain regulatory principles and tends on the whole to entail monitoring, but is instead guided by the wish for a genealogical synopsis of how an artistic intention is manifested. Such intent arises from social conditioning, personal experience, inclinations, analysis, thought processes, experiments. Ordered, unordered structures refer to the paradoxical will to create order according to the principles of the relatively unprincipled, anarchic, wild, precisely that which eludes the logic of discipline and punish, so to speak, of Foucault, obeys its own laws, indeed erodes the traditional understanding of what is worth documenting, and can thus permanently alter understandings of history. What is normally discarded is preserved, not withdrawn from the overall picture of what is read, but rather brought to light. So now, of course, there are also gaps in the archive and omissions, obliterations, things that are discarded consciously by the artists and also by states archives. But I think that I have to skip this chapter and maybe go to something that connects us again to this kind of superimposing and also the rhythmatic virtual structure, possible virtual structure of an archive. And it's also interesting that Vali Export uses this term, of course, because she comes from media, art, and filmmaking. So she says, what I always find most difficult in my thought archive is the classification. I classify things and realize, however, that many other classifications would be possible, and I should also classify the documents there as well. So I did not intend the archive structure to be an archive structure. This statement by Vali Export about her archive reveals a number of conceptualizations that apply in general to idiosyncratic ordering in artists' archive. It is obvious that the archive of thoughts and figures of thoughts, thematic interests and media-related procedures developed over many years prior to the artworks are rhizomatically connected, and that consequently everything is connected to everything else. because she's taking up an idea 10, 20 years later in another medium, and that was a thing that she was very interested in. So motifs come and go and return in a different manner of manifestation. So one results from the other. Transformations take place, thoughts are developed, teased out further, discarded, conceptualized along other lines, and the archive, especially when conceived and laid out physically, must in a certain sense always fail at this stage already. So yeah, the question is how to represent this archive. It's really a difficult question. In any case, WRO Export's meticulous collection of elements in an evidence room for forensic examination and investigation cannot be attributed solely to the will to transmit. Rather, it appears as a tool that is crucial to her artistic research, to artistic production itself. WRO Export's archival impulse, if you want, stems in the first instance from a genuine affinity to the structural aspect of search processes and the manifold repercussions in these processes. Her approach as a filmmaker serves her well in this respect. Let us think about reflections, doublings, space-time condensations, media-related recursions, repetitions, empty fields. The differential come into play. So it is also no coincidence that WRO Export's work, her writings, and thousands of volumes in her library at the Research Center are permitted by the presence of structuralist literature, film, psychoanalysis, anthropology, linguistics, and authors such as Michel Foucault, Roland Barthes, Lévi-Strauss, Gregory Bateson, and so on. Now it is in a way an analog, but at the same time virtual archive. Analogous to this finding, how would one think of such an order in the archive, or as a representation, the transmission belt of this archive, so to speak? At least for the time being, the two possible models exist and have been pursued in the Research Center's institutional practice over the past 3 years, or 3.5, almost 4 years. So one focus is on digitizing the collection and opening these 200,000 items that we have, and we are now in the process of having digitized and archived almost like 60,000 items. And of course, are trying also to make this accessible to researchers online if possible. So the one focus is the digitizing of the collection and opening it up to a broader public of researchers, students, and other interested individuals via the WRO Export Center's website. That idea is constrained by the countless, of course, potential claims arising from copyright and personal rights, despite the desire of an open source solution. But while such claims are counter to the inventory creator's desire for openness, this model runs up against the limits of precisely those existing potential rights that may be involved. That means the scope, scope for digital exploration remains limited, making the archive as a physical location indispensable. But still, we are in the process of trying to find different categories and also curated sections within the archive where it is more easy maybe to navigate through. And I cannot go into this because this, of course, is a process that, it's like 2 years that we were like thinking how to make the database and the archive and how to translate this into the web interface and to make it visible via the web, so to speak. So you see here different tiles, and and then you go, so to speak, you go into Like, for example, here you go into the details and then you see the material and all the information that is necessary. So the second model involves exhibiting and showing the archive by developing novel forms of presentation in various curated experimental arrangements of parts of the collection in exhibition contexts. Some attempts along these lines were made between 2017 and 21 in various contexts of archive and work. Both dispositives essentially enable a contextual way of looking. Both dispositives, I mean now the online archive and the exhibition. They enable a contextual way of looking scope for reading many documents simultaneously next to, over, and under each other as a form of intertextual grasping of connections and references that run between text, sketches, photos, material collected from newspaper, books, from the artist's library, and many other types of material. In this overall view, the new inevitably emerges, new knowledge, connections, and relationships are stirred up. So my exhibitions, especially the first exhibition in Linz in 2017, were based, here you see a diagram, which you see then better as a display, but only to show you that I tried to make myself clear what an archive is when I was doing in 2017, when I was doing the first time an exhibition on the archive, and I didn't really know the archive yet. So I was doing this research about the principle of the archive as such, which is essentially the state's archive, which has a completely different order and regulation, of course, than the archive of artists. And then I went specifically to the archive of Valley Export, with also, let's say, her considerations of the archive in this kind of comic, this kind of word plasma, I don't know. And here you see the archive and the dispositif of the archive within the exhibition. Yeah, here Sabine, that would be the...
Sabine, I'm very sorry, but would it be possible to conclude in, let's say, 5 minutes, something like that, to have enough time for discussion? Okay. Yes. Thank you very much.
I'm almost finished, and I think that I just show you the material and not reading anymore, so that you have some visuals. I mean, I tried to conceive the... Now it doesn't go back. I tried to conceive the exhibition space as a brain, so to speak, with the right and left space, which was devoted to artistic production, and on the other hand to artistic research. And so this goes probably too much into detail now, but I show you. So this was the exhibition. One part of the exhibition, and you see now that I was trying to not fetishize the material, but to render it also in a way very, very graphic and clear. So I did not exhibit a library, but I exhibited, as you see here, so to speak, the books within the archive, so you could read it like a book. So the wall was a book, and it was the archive at the same time, but it was in a way abstracted. So, and here, sorry. And here, at the right side, we have this reflection on the archive in general, and the archive of Valley Export. So we have here we have some other images. Now I don't know why it goes so. takes ages to show some more images. So these are poems of hers. This is the other space where it was not the room of the thought and of the writing and of reflection, but it was more about the production and about the effective exhibitions. So this was completely conceived in a different way. Here you see some images. Goes very slow for some reason, I don't know. These are only images of the book now, where you see a material contextualized with artwork. And here also I tried to contextualize the artwork as such in the exhibition. That is one of 2019, and in betweens, so that you see like the sketches for the works actual in the exhibition, and you see also material around that was connected somehow to the work in the exhibition, and you could more understand how it came about and how different works are interrelated and one came out of the other and so on. So this is also yeah. You know, normally you would not, of course, know this material, and you would not know where it comes from, because in the final work you don't see these various stages of mounting and searching and all the research material that she collected in the archive. So these are just more few examples. Here you see how this was connected also within the exhibition space. And maybe at the end you see then, I should just show you how the center is today. It's not empty, but it's with the library now, and you see people working on the material, and yeah, you see how the material was assembled. For example, for this virtual body, this script that she made in the 90s, and which was edited now by us. Here you see the book as the first publication in in our publication series. And this is a commented and newly edited the script that she made in the 90s, but it was never realized as a film. But it was just text, and you didn't know where the images come from and the text came from, and we did this research work, and that's of course one of our main things that we have to do. So, okay, now I finish because I was already too long, I think.
Thank you very much, Sabine. I think it was really extremely interesting, so we don't mind, definitely not. There is already a question in the chat, and I'll read it in a minute, but what I was all the time thinking about was this kind of a material turn somehow, and the connection between, well, you've mentioned it quite a lot, I guess, the connection or interconnection between materiality and immateriality. And I very much admire the way you decided to present the archive, because I think it's quite risky for the external public, how to get inside, because the materiality helps always somehow. You can better connect with the people or the person itself. It's not a question, it's just a remark I was thinking about, but the question itself is, I would read it, it's by Barbara Sepšiová. I would like to ask if you know what is the range of used archives in virtual tours of museum. I think it's more general, so you can reply in chat, perhaps, if you have to think about it.
What I didn't understand that. You are too quick. Sorry.
I'm sorry about it. It's all the time like that. Barbara is asking, I would like to ask if you know what is the range of used archives in virtual tours of museums. Actually, I don't understand myself the question. Barbara, would you like to, because I think you are connected, would you like to ask the question yourself, please? Okay, so I would skip it and I leave it to chat and you will see how it works for you. But there's another question. And then I would give Anna space to present since there. But the question is by Dusan Barok that time. And he, yeah, actually, this is quite interesting too. Valley Export is an archive made by one person, right? One artist. And it's quite huge, but on the other hand, it's centralized somehow. One person is in a center of it. But what about contact, for example, and your work for generally? I think this is slightly different context and different kind of archive. So can you elaborate on this somehow?
Yeah, I mean, the Generali Foundation, of course, we had also archives of, worked with archives of Gordon Matter Clark, for example, and so on. But we had also this exhibition space and, of course, a lot of symposia and so on. So this was all interconnected. And here, the main focus is Valley Export's archive. But she herself said, okay, it's important that you work on my work, but take it as a point of departure to think about performance art and media art today. If someone wants to use my material or scripts or concepts that I didn't translate or make a work, use it and transform it, do whatever you want. So I think it's not only about her work explicitly, but departing from her, thinking about a collective memory of time first also, because of course the archive is full of material that normally you would not know and you would not have and you would not find anywhere, because she collected like crazily clippings of the time and so on, that nobody has this immediate witness of time, because of course everything that is thought of and transformed into a theory and then a book, that's one thing. But to find out about the thinking of a time and also certain witnesses and certain artistic networks, that's something that you can find also in this archive, and you can make verifications if you are doing research on certain topics, because you know, you have all the correspondences from 50 years, and the correspondences are with all kinds of theorists, artists, people from the art world, and so it's also interesting in terms of research of a collective memory, and not only of the Valley Export. But of course, it's an exclusive thing, a very exclusive, and but it's connected. The institute is connected to the university, as you know, and we also have calls for students to work on not only Valley Export, but taking as a point of departure and working on possible aspects of performance and media today. So,
yes, yeah, I like it very much. This it really is like in a universe sometimes, right? To get in this kind of an archive, I guess. I would ask you to stop sharing your screen, if I might. And I would allow one more question. So if Tiziana or Anna or Lucia want to ask something, or some of the students, just one more question.
Is it away?
Yes,
or is it...
Yes, it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know that it was still on.
Absolutely fine.
Because I saw you. That's why.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So if there's no other, yeah, Anna has a question. Okay, Anna, ask, please.
Okay, thank you. May I have kind of more general question? Sabine, could you tell us, like, how do you feel as a person who's very much experienced and involved in cultural institutions, public institutions in Europe? Is German-speaking part of Europe an empire of archives? I mean, is archiving somewhat rooted into this culture and the cultural context of this part of Europe? How you feel it?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, then I must admit, obviously, I don't know your part of the universe so much that I could not really judge if this is something that is very specific to the German-speaking countries, because I don't think so. You have the archives probably. It's just that they don't have the luxuries to be acquired, so to speak, by the state or something, and people are like 2 or 5, 6 people are working on those archives, but I'm sure you have those archives. I mean, if I speak with colleagues, they say...
But not that much art of archiving.
You think so? Yeah, maybe.
That's why I asked this question.
Yeah, actually, I agree with Anna. It's a perfection, and listen to you, it's perfection itself. So it's kind of very nice, actually, a very nice experience.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good perspective. Thank you for this. I have to think about it.
The question.
I was not aware of this, although I must say that I had colleagues working in this field that said that it is a quite very unique thing with this Valley Export archive. I mean, you can imagine that Valley Export is a personality. I mean, she's a person, and of course, with her working within the university, also she taught in the US and in Berlin, and she was also board member of the university. She imposed, of course, also like in her performances, that there was something at stake, and that also the governments and everybody has to finally acknowledge what women did and why this why archives have to be decolonized, and why a new writing of history, that's what I couldn't finish in my paper, why they have to be installed very urgently. So that was very acclaimed for her, that like a model, let's say, for others, that here a voice is raised that is completely different, and that these archons of antiquity, they are not interesting anymore, but there are new orders and new histories and new history. History has to be rewritten by these voices that come up finally, that are always at the center of her artistic practice, of course, also. She worked with Unica Thürn, I mean, about Unica Thürn, Ada Lovelace, and all these women. And yeah, I mean, it's quite something. It's unfortunately I'm leaving now, going to another destination, but there comes somebody in.
Okay, Tiziana, I think, well, last one question, and then we have to move on, okay?
I have just a question. You showed this mind map. It is a kind of schema where you started with the principles of the archive as a normal national archive, and then you went to the artist's archive, and then to the exhibition. And I just wanted to ask if you could explain better how it worked. So this from the principle of the archive as an institution, and with the rules of archiving, and then to move to the order disorder of an artist archive, because I had the problem with the archives of the Zero Foundation. I also started at the Zero Foundation when the documents were not studied yet, and were not ordered yet, and so I had to adapt the order disorder of the artist to the principle of the archive, and I had the feeling you went the other way around. How did it work?
It's not really the other way around, because we have, of course, to take over her order, because this is like common sense. because of the fact that we pointed out several times that you omit something if you possibly, because you don't see, you don't understand why is this connected with that, don't make sense. And maybe 2 years after it makes sense. So you have to maintain this, and this order is maintained in the boxes. But when we digitize and when we make the archive as a database, we make a search, how do we say, a Findbaum.
Yeah.
And then there is, of course, another order that you have the chance to find something. And also there is this all this kind of thesaurus and Verschlagwortung and so on, so that you can have the chance to find detailed material and make your own maps and so on. It was not, I think, the inverse, but we are maintaining the order, which is also sometimes frustrating because it's very confusing because things are doubled and so on, and evidently not in the right order. But of course, the archivists say that you should maintain this, and and the digital order then is clean, let's say, a cleaned order, so that you can find something. But I don't know if I answered your question. I mean, the motive why I took the diagram as a tool is first in order to get clear what it is about, and second also because the diagram is a tool of conceptual art in general. So this kind of pseudo scientific tool, partly scientific and partly artistic, and visual at the same time. So it was a way also for me to understand what's the difference between an idiosyncratic artistic archive and the rigid order of a state's archive that has a completely other system. But of course, this diagram is gigantic, so I would take like 10 hours to speak about it.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely great, and it brings me actually
in this big book, 500 pages book.
Great, absolutely great. Well, there is another quite interesting point, this kind of state-funded or state-based institutions and collections and also foundation, because I think you all operate in different ways somehow, so it's always contrasting, and I imagine it quite conflicting, or I know it from our own experience, so this is it. It would be very nice to focus on this kind of themes more, but unfortunately we are quite time limited. So for now, I would skip to Anna Olszewska and Senstre. And again, I would, Anna, introduce you very quickly and then give you the floor, okay? So, university, which is another type of institutions operating in this field. University of Science and Technology is a technical university established in Krakow in 1919. It was formerly known as the University of Mining and Metallurgy. It has 15 faculties and schools. One of them is Faculty of Humanities, which always surprises me, with the Department of Cultural Studies and Philosophy. Anna Olszewska is a member of the University of Science and Technology, this university in Krakow. She is a chief curator of the Ray Senstre project. Anna has a background in arts and humanities. She works in the visual studies area of document analysis, print history, history of science, and curatorship. She cooperates with the print room of Polish Academy of Arts and Sciences, or with the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Science and Technology. She holds a PhD in art history from the Jagiellonian University in Krakow and MA in art history and religious studies, also from Krakow. She is experienced at curating exhibition in the field of history of sciences. So Anna, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. And I'll try to share the screen. Hopefully it would work. Is it fine? Yeah. Okay. So I guess my part is to move our discussion from quiet museums and rhizomatic archives to this ever busy, noisy university space. And I would like also to take an opportunity to change our perspective a little bit, also in terms of how we speak about media art collecting, and start with the kind of flashy and famous line from Damien Hirst: "The art is the world's greatest currency." So I would like to speak first about economy then about trade-offs, and then shortly about hazards that can be observed or experienced when media art goes with the university. So as Barbara has mentioned, my case study is connected with recent restoration of Edward Ignatowicz kinetic installation created in late 60s. It's about Sensta, commissioned by Philips company and put on display in Eindhoven in early 70s for 40 years, and then goes the classic pattern. We've already, Tiziana told us also the story that evolves along this line. Then we have the limbo period, which lasted for 40 years in case of Ignatowicz work, and after this time when this place has been cancelled, and then some attempts to restore and rebuild the sculpture has been taken. We've managed, by we I mean the Resensed network community that has been founded at IGH Science and Tech in Krakow, basically connected with Faculty of Humanities, but in collaboration with Fine Arts Academy, Intermedia Art Department, and also, last but not least, external workshops around Krakow. After this restoration of Resensed, we've gathered some minor, as I'd say, because quite casual still. It's long lasting, but it is connected with one project so far, has been connected with one project so far. Some observations and some experience on how you work with media art, how when you get to the university, and this is and here I would like to put also one proviso. By this situation, this case study, I mean the situation when a university has not an art department, because when we speak about universities such as MIT in Boston, we know that we have some institutional support for continuous maintaining and making and reflecting on media art. In that case here in Krakow, with Krakow Resensed project, we have humanities department, which is the youngest and the smallest at the university, and then this project that I'm going to speak about has been launched in a kind of interdepartment collaboration at the university, but no with a firm support of study programs and a network of scholars who actually take care for this kind of projects on a daily basis. So let's start with economy. The contract that has been signed between Edward Ignatowicz and the representatives of the Philips company in 21st March, first day of spring, 1968. The contract preserved in James Gardner archives gives us some minor insight into the economic models, and also the solid numbers that were behind the original production. So speaking about economy and media art, we may ask a question whether these projects that we are maintaining and curating at the museums, libraries, and the university are the projects that come from the same economical background. Is media art and let's say unified in terms of trade-offs and ideas behind media art patronage? I would say that in terms of original production, the Sensta project it seems to be a fairly good example of early neoliberal media art patronage, and it is not an isolated one. I would think that the original commission has been strictly connected with founding of Evoluon, the new venue, also prepared by Philips Company in Eindhoven. And Eindhoven at the time, at the height of the company's success, financial success, was actually the city owned by Philips Company. And it was a kind, I like to use this term, temporary appropriated zone by the corporate industry. So the original contract says nothing about, actually does not tell us anything about work of art, but it tells us about sensitivity response feature, a place where that has been planned for the exhibition pavilion. And the contract says also about some formal outlines for the sculpture and finances. And when it comes to the finances, we can give also some solid numbers in terms of this commission. I've tried to convert the amount of money that has been put in the contract to support the execution, the labor of the artist, and also engagement of the team who supported Edward Ignatowicz during the execution of an artwork, and materials, including an approximate value of a mainframe at the time. And it turns out that after, if I'm right in terms of converting the British pounds in the late 60s into contemporary euros, value of euro, it turns out that the original commission has been estimated as 200,000 euros before it has been shipped to the Netherlands. So that was more or less the amount, the investment of the huge successful corporate industry company into this work of art. I do not have an access to solid numbers of previous art patronage projects by Philips, such as Poème Électronique and the Pavilion at Brussels, but it's comparing the scale of the endeavor, we may expect that actually the Center was a kind of medium size, not a major kind of contract or expense for the company at the time. So it was packed around inside the pavilion, inside the exhibition, science exhibition, and inside also the R&D developments at NatLab at the Philips. And this explains a little bit why it was so easy to cancel the exhibition when it turned out that you need lots of investment of time, expertise, not that much money, but also time and expertise to take care for the installation. So the display has been cancelled after 4 years, which we may say it was quite long in terms of media artwork on display, but still. The cancellation was quite rapid, and probably it might have been connected somewhat with the financial crisis at the time that has also touched the Philips Company. But here we have this, with this rapid investment and then rapid cancellation, we can say that there is a kind of neoliberal throwaway economy model behind the original commission. And what happens when it gets to the university? When it gets to the university, there is quite a different reason, as we may think about, behind this, again, investment of labor and expertise and time to restore the sculpture. And I said that what we experienced during the project is an investment in attention economy. attention economy that brings network and people around the newly funded humanities department, and that also shows how the potential of the whole university in terms of cultural capital accumulation and also networking. So completely different idea, and we may argue that's not that much about producing a kind of cryptocurrency for the university as an artwork, but more about a noble non-profit cognitive research work we do. But still, it's in terms of when we look back at like 3 years that passed after we finished the first part of the project, and when the sculpture has been reactivated, then the return from this investment it is quite significant. And when we look at the university reports, at the department reports, at the paper, semester is an important issue for the university, even though we do not have art or media art department, nothing like that. It turns out that this return from attention economy circulation is quite profitable for the university, and it actually works much. The dynamics is higher than the dynamics of publication and research that is connected with this, because this is also a problem of humanities. I think that text focus with a virtual space of the text, and you produce a text, and then you theorize. So you get this when we are at the university, while we are speaking about this university economy, you get quotations, you get high score impact publication, etc., etc. So in terms of text production, which is a kind of estimator for intellectual value production at the time at the university economy, it doesn't cut that much. I mean, that project doesn't produce that much of income connected with publication. We have like 5 or 4 papers where we use this case study and show it in theoretical context. But that's it. But that's all. It is uncomparable to what we to the work that we have, work that we like also in terms of curating, exhibiting, and maintaining. So one of the trade-offs is building the network, and the other one is getting a return from this networking with public institutions, not only universities but also museums and archives, media art festivals all around. So this journey from London to Kolensplat to Eindhoven to Kolensplat and to Krakow is a shift between 3 economical paradigms. Like we have the design that the center has been designed in London in the context of art, of contemporary art scene, connected not only with where the artist was an immigrant. Actually, he was an alien to the place that he and people that he worked with, and he came with the idea that actually he managed to match it with pop art at the time, not only with media art. He managed to create a kind of work that operates not exclusively in media art context, but also in context of popular culture, and it fit well to this Kolensplat, Eindhoven, Bakhtinian, Philips corporate industry appropriated zone. Then we have Kolensplat Limbo, where during the period of like late 90s, early 2000s, Senster became a kind of legend. in media art publication, mentioned from time to time here and there, but with no in-depth insights in terms of a history of the work of Ignatowicz, and without a kind of solid, I would say, theoretical commentary with it, until recent works by Alex Zivanovich, relatively recent works by Alex Zivanovich and Joanna Walewska. And then we have Krakow, where it gets to the university and the economical model paradigm shifts again. And here I would like to, speaking about the trade-offs, I would like to just refocus a little bit and leave the semester behind for a moment to tell you also the story that we are in right now and that is happening right now in terms how media art gets to the university. Because of the semester link and because of this our involvement with this project in the latest edition of CEAD International Contemporary Art Festival in Sapporo in Japan, co-curated by Agnieszka Dzieduszycka, who has presented during the first session of this workshop. An idea came up that actually our department, the humanities department, can host a new work of media art. This time, it is not a classic. It is not a historical heritage heritage work, but this is a work that has been created on residence for Sapporo 2020 Festival by Niklas Roy and Kati Hipa. The title is Yukikaki Research Station. This work has been combined with hardware, some solid parts acquainted and bought that you can find actually in a tool shops around in Sapporo. Some serial products. So in terms of the materiality and in terms also of idea and context, I wouldn't like to delve into this that much. Maybe it's not very relevant. This is not a piece of art that has been actually constructed during the months of conceptualization, that you put a lot of work and a lot of money in, but still you get two artists, they go to the residence, they know the context, they produce a work at the residence. This is completely normal, typical situation. And after the festival is over, we have always the same problem that Agnieszka had as a curator of this festival. Either we just pack these precious Arduino and sensor parts and send it back to Niklas and Kati to Europe in a small, elegant pack, and then throw away everything else, or we do something else with this. So the idea of Niklas and Kati was like, let's try to find a school in Sapporo who would like to have this measurement Yukikaki station as an object. And we had a chat with Agnieszka online like 2 months ago, and and it suddenly came up like, oh, maybe your university would like to have this work. I said, maybe my university museum would like to have this work. I said, no, my university museum is a dead space and nothing happens there. And actually, we know this work is a work that you show once and then you have some documents. And this is not it's not a paradigm shifting stuff. Yeah. So the idea is to bring it to Krakow and use it as a work that can serve us during the workshops with our students and media art lectures and faculties with our students, to show them how to handle media artworks. If it comes to our department, it won't come as a work of art to be displayed. Actually, we can do this, but the agreement is that we can operate, like we can handle this, and we can give it to our students to show them how how you operate when you have documentation, very nice documentation. You have some hardware, and you have also some programming stuff, and you need to put this together. And then you need to maintain it. You need to find a place to display it, etc., etc. So this is an idea that that came out of this original project. So in terms of trade-offs, you get this. Maybe who knows how this history is gonna evolve. Maybe we came just across a formula to maintain, not maybe maintain, but reuse or use media artworks after they have been put on display during the media art festivals. Another trade-off is networking and attention economy, I would say, is the model that is behind all this action. And now, quickly to the third point, the last one, the hazards. Because in terms of trade-offs, you have some profits, but you have also some hazard connected with this kind of activity. Last time we met at Olomouc during the workshop, Jakub asked us about whether we think it is possible to maintain media artworks and how long can it work. And we discussed about these radical statements that it is impossible to keep it moving, like or even like extend the life of a media artwork in a scale that we got used to with paintings and sculpture, etc. And here, actually, this approach gets to the point, because actually, university, in terms of hazards, university is an institution that can burn down these works of art. Because here, when we look at these two slides published in the Leonardo articles on Sensor, when we point out this, what we have, how nice it looks so nicely, it's superb, it's just really good job done. And here we have some parts that have been maintained, the yellow ones, and some parts that have been changed and documented and then reworked as new. We have this. We come across the core idea of the whole process of restoration we did. We know this Nelson Goodman and Pippa Larson promoted script-based allographic display of media artworks idea. That we have this idea that there is a design and there is a performance and there is a script, this Nelson Goodman approach, that some works of art can be considered as script-based works of art. Yeah, like we have music scores, and we can play the music on and on until we have a score. We can do this better or worse, but it works. You cannot falsify the song or the music opus as you can falsify the painting. So when you get to media art, we can say that these works of art are script-based art works of art, and we can use the script to launch performance and launch holographic performances, as other theories says. And this was this is the way of thinking we've applied during this restoration. Like our idea is like, come on, we are at the university, we are not in the museum, so we want to put it on the move. Like we have design, and we started the design of the piece, but our aim is to get the performance and everything that is in between, that is the materiality of the piece. It's not even a script for us. It has been named as a subsystems. So we go from design to performance with the subsystems in the middle. When we got to this restoration process, we started to think about these subsystems. In terms of subsystems, I mean the sensory system, the mechanical system, the solid truss form that holds everything up, gives the shape to the sculpture. Yeah, we immediately got into thinking about system requirements, got into thinking about in terms of system engineering, and that I must admit that in terms of design, we thought about different levels of design, like including the formula, the materials, the scale, the shape, software, movements, etc., etc. It was not like very easy. Like, okay, we have this iron truss, we have this shape, and that's the design, and the rest is not the design. Okay, it was a little bit more extended onto various aspects of the work, but still we have this. System requirements in the middle, which means basically, and this is my last line, that materiality of the work that is being put constantly in the center of a classic procedure of curatorship and also of art conservation turns out to be a kind of only a bridge, only a link between two parts of the process that actually the university-based community is very much interested in: design and performance. Shine and burn, that's the hazard. Thank you very much for listening. Okay.
Thank you very much, Anna. My brain is just circling very quickly.
Okay.
Right
Excuse me for this.
No. I like it.
Representation. Okay.
I like it very much. I like the way you combined. I feel that the university might work as a base somehow because of the students and because of the interest and because it's not a collection. So the element of protection is not so high there, I guess. I would ask you to stop sharing the screen if you might.
Okay.
Because I can see myself in a mirror and it's kind of scary. So
yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
It works now. Do you still think it's a right choice that the university got Censor and is taking care of it?
Yeah, of course. I think that this is also one of the talks we had like several times. I think it wouldn't be put on the move in the museum. It wouldn't be maintained at the museum for a long run, and it would be also impossible, like to gather the network within a few months to gather the network of people who actually can do this and to rethink all the details and connect workshops as well. I don't know. Maybe I underestimate museums, but I think that the good idea in the long run, the good idea to not make it burn after while shining would be to put it in the museum, but to establish like a kind of a link. It can be like one person or two person to insiders at the university or technical university, specifically the technical university, to get this communication with the people who are inside R&D and with the workshop, and who can react quite swiftly when any problem occurs. Like you don't have to keep the whole department of programmers and mechanical engineering specialists at the university, at the museum specifically, but it needs to be linked somewhat.
Okay, thank you very much.
Which makes things cheaper.
Okay, this is a good point. I think actually it works also for WRO Center and also for the Zero Foundation somehow, because I think the cooperation between archive, museum as a collection, and the university or some sort of a research department, it makes sense for me. And I think actually WRO deliberately choose this kind of way. I also think about Tiziana and her way cooperating with the university and preparing the new concept of conservation of contemporary art. So can you somehow react to that, both of you?
That's for Tiziana and Sabine.
Yeah. But you can also react if you'd like. I'm open a general discussion, I guess. So this is the starting point.
Yes. As I must say that at the Zero Foundation, we really wanted also to cooperate with universities, and we also had, for example, a researcher that was writing a dissertation about Zero, as a working as a trainee at the Zero Foundation and preparing a dissertation at the same time. And what was very important for us at the Zero Foundation was to create this kind of network you were speaking about, because we had already the question, what is, okay, you have an archive about one artist, but what is about all the network also around this artist? The Zero Foundation was founded by 3 artists, Heinz Makot, Topine, and Günther Uecker, the core of the Zero movement. But they were always in contact with other people, and we wanted to show it in the network. And so we started an international research group on Zero to study the connections between these 3 German artists and other artists in particularly in Europe, in West Europe, because Zero was a movement that was very strong in West Europe, even if it had also a contact with Yugoslavia. And also this technical part. So the Zero was very connected with technology, and the Zero artists participated in an exhibition in Eindhoven. He had to think about this exhibition the whole time while you were given us your presentation, because there was an exhibition in 1966, the same year of Light Ballet Homage to New York in Eindhoven, in the Van Ambe Museum. It was Art, Light, Art was the name, and was financed by Philips also, that paid, for example, and also cared for the lamps, for example, in the exhibition. So also this contact with technology and most importantly with the MIT was very important for this, is very important, still very important for the Zero Foundation. The Zero Foundation has a cooperation with the MIT at the moment to make this contact, this link between art and technology. So I speak more about my past at the Zero Foundation than about my actual project, because the actual project is still in a at the very beginning, and it is not. There is not nothing yet about. I can already speak, but yes, at the Zero Foundation, this aspect was very, very strong.
Thanks for the hint about the exhibition in Eindhoven. I didn't know about it.
Yes, there was a Kunst, Licht, Kunst, so art, light, art, and Popper was Frank Popper was a major the scholar for kinetic art wrote the catalogue of the exhibition.
Okay, well, thanks.
Sabine, you wanted to react it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with us. The university is essential, of course, because I'm professor there, because I can supervise the PhDs and the postdocs, which, of course, is implemented into the Valley Export Center, but at the same time, our interest is into to make more research into performance and media art, but contemporary, and where does it go? And also at the same time, we initiate or are starting to initiate, we have a senior scientist now there, and I wanted to initiate this, which is a study on performance and conservation and museum and art market, so how this all is interconnected. And I must say that at the moment, and for this we wanted also to explore this field in working together with Barbara Clausen, for example, in Montreal at the university, the expert on performance, and also the Academy of Fine Arts, the conservator there, Caroline Bollmann and Almut Spiegler, that now every Thursday have a series of lecture online, which are fantastic, on performance media conservation. It's exactly the topic where we are dealing now, and it's really fantastic that there is such a network all over and everybody's interested in these processes of rethinking the museum and conservation, and also the notion of the artwork as such, if it's ephemeral and and technically demanding and so on. So the connection is obvious to the university, and I think really very important.
Thank you very much for that. Is there any question from public to make something clear or to think about something else, what wasn't mentioned before? Okay, I think we are exhausted, full of ideas, full of experiences right now. It was quite something, I guess. So I would like to thank you very much for your papers, for the discussion. I really like that and appreciate your interest in this project. So thank you very much. Let's stay in touch, definitely. It would be very nice to meet again, I guess. I don't know, to share our other experiences. So we'll see about if it would be possible, if the university, Masaryk University, would be interested. Yeah, let's stay in touch, please.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
much.
Take
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks. Thanks, Barbara.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.